All right, happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to Vainu webinar. So good to see all of you here, or actually I don't, of course, see you, but I know that you're there. So thank you for joining. Topic today is website insights. So we'll talk about what can we extract and process company data from company websites and how to use it to increase and drive pipeline for sales. Let's start with some definitions first. We'll heavily focus on something called firmographics this time, because we know that when you define your ideal customer profile, the most common data points we all use are often location, industry, and company size. So when we talk about the customers we want to sell to, very often we use those data points as ICP criteria. And here's an example: Nordic software companies with more than 100 employees, or Stockholm-based restaurants that are more than $1 million in revenue. And the traditional approach, how all of us get that data, I think many of you work with Vainu, some of you might work with other providers. I mean, there's Bisnode, Enento Group, some local providers, and typically these providers then access the data through governmental registries. For example, in Finland, it's PRH, in Sweden, Bolagsverket, BIREC in Norway, CVR in Denmark, Companies House in the UK, and so on. And they, of course, have the basic information available, typically business ID, the address that you need to register or file in when you register the business. You also pick and choose standard industry code for yourself and the basic information. And then often those are the data points we also have in our CRMs and marketing automation systems. Either we manually put them in there, or you use an integration from these vendors so that it, for example, if there's a company called Bannerflow, it's a software company from Sweden, these are some of the data points you might have in your Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Dynamics, and other CRMs and marketing automation systems. So, but the big question is that if we just rely on these sort of official data points that come from registries, from governmental registries, are we then effective in segmentation or prospecting ICP companies? Are we actually losing out some opportunities simply because we rely on data points? So we've been thinking quite a bit, could we actually provide you with something more precise, something that is even more accurate, something that is sort of like an alternative way to provide values for these data fields? So we'll start by doing an exercise. I'll show you 20 Nordic companies. I'm not revealing you the names of the companies, just the data fields. So you will see the industry for each company. You will see the employee count as a size indicator, and also the city and the country. So these are the 20 Nordic companies. And if we, for example, buy data or somehow input data into our CRM and marketing automation, we often talk about thousands of records. So then it's super critical that these data points are useful when we do segmentation, because we don't do it one by one, but we try to do it by using data. So 20 companies, and always what you have is industry, location, and company size. So then let's assume that our CEO or one of the executives wants us to build segments. Here are 7 examples. First one is out of those companies that we saw, SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses that have less than 100 employees. We need to create that segment. Then second segment is simply software businesses. Third one, companies that are operating in Sweden. Fourth one, companies operating in the UK or US. Then segment 5 is sort of combining the previous ones, Nordic-based software businesses. 6, enterprise businesses that are very big, more than 1,000 employees. And the last one, companies that are somehow connected to recruitment. So if we use the official data, then the answers are fairly straightforward. Companies with less than 100 employees, we just include the ones where employee count is less than 100, right? Then software companies, in this example, almost all of them are having an industry code closely related to software, only 2 ad agencies. 7 out of 20 companies in Sweden. None of them seems to do business in the UK or US. Then lots of Nordic-based software companies, because all of them are based in the Nordics. And then we also saw that many of them are software companies, so that's why 18 out of 20. None of them seem to have more than 1,000 employees, so enterprise team wouldn't get any opportunities. And if you focus on recruitment industry as a sales rep, you also would basically have 0 prospects to work with, because none of them are in the recruitment space. But next I'm going to show you the mistakes we did, and or not necessarily mistakes, but why it's good to have alternative data points as well, and not just rely on the official data. Because I think some of the findings we'll see is that we actually had quite a few false positives in those segments, and we did not include all the right answers. So this one was the first one you saw. SMBs with less than 100 employees. I've basically just picked the ones where employee count is less than 100. And now, next I'm revealing you the companies, and most likely you'll at least recognize some of them. So these were the companies we picked: Supermetrics, Detectify, ServiceNow, Amazon, Salesforce, HubSpot. And of course, we all know that quite a few of these companies actually have more than 100 employees. Of course, it comes down to whether we're interested in the in-country employee count or total employee count. But these companies popped up in the search because the legal entity registered, for example, in Norway, might have less than 100 employees, even though it might be a global giant such as Salesforce. So if we look at from total employee count point of view, out of these companies that we picked, only Jobilon and Visual Components are the ones that actually have less than 100 employees. So the hit rate was not good at all. Another example was Nordic-based software businesses, and we picked 18 because all the companies are in the Nordics, and only 2 had advertising agency as an industry code, so we left them out. And then if we look at these companies, we also see that, well, not all of them are actually Nordic based. Oracle, Amazon, Microsoft, Splunk, HubSpot, they're not Nordic companies. The others are. So again, we actually did quite a few mistakes if we want to focus on where the headquarters is located. So 5 out of 18 were off. And then last example, companies in the recruitment space. So we didn't identify any because none of the standard industry codes is saying anything about recruitment or human resources, just software businesses and a couple of advertising agencies. But then you could also argue that even though Teamtailor and Jobilon, they are of course software companies, but they're also in the recruitment space because both of them are building application tracking system. So it's a software used by HR, made for candidates, made for human resources professionals to manage the candidate pipeline and sort of organize the recruitment process. So these companies should be included in that type of segment, and we need to solve these mistakes somehow. So how do we do that? How do we solve and make sure that we actually could pick the right companies without actually checking every single company one by one? The answer is that we can use website insights, and that's what this webinar is all about. So why company size often is off if you're keen on like more global employee count or a total employee count instead of just an in-country employee count. Typically in the Nordics, the sort of official employee count comes from financial statement. So the last financial statement that you file, it's publicly available document, and part of that, you always report the average number of full-time employees in the last fiscal. Now it's May 2022. Many of the companies, they haven't filed yet the financial statement from 2021, meaning that the latest available document is the fiscal year of 2020. And if we pick average number of employees in 2020 and display that as an employee count, it might be even like almost 2 years old information. And when it comes to fast growing companies such as GetAccept, it's simply off. And I think there's plenty of ways to look at company website, follow the links, check places like LinkedIn, Wikipedia, what they mention on the site to come up with the right answer, that it's actually not 98 employees, but more than 200 actually. And why location is often off? Of course, if you just use the business ID, the local business ID in the Nordics, then these international companies picked Oracle as an example. Yes, they do have an address in Finland, it's in Espoo, Finland, but it would be quite misleading to profile Oracle as a Finnish company. Yes, they have an entity in Finland, and it's important that we indicate that Oracle is doing business and has a business unit in Finland, but it should be US-based company because the HQ is in Austin, Texas. Again, fairly easy to identify that if you do it systematically from the website and by following the links available on the website. So we've been putting a lot of time and effort to develop technology that we can analyze websites and extract the information from those websites, and also then pick and choose the information we need to answer these questions more accurately. And then why industry data is off? Another good example, Teamtailor. So that's the Swedish company I already used as an example. So they have picked computer programming as an industry code when they register the business in Sweden. It's one of the standard industry codes in Sweden. And technically, I guess that's correct. It's a software business. So sometimes companies pick things like activities of head offices, and then obviously you don't know at all what they're doing. But we also profile these companies nowadays based on their website content. So then we know that it's actually not only a software business, it's a SaaS business. It's in the employer branding space, recruitment, human resources, and these are all labels that we attach to these companies. And when this data goes into CRM, and when you build segments, for example, for advertisement campaigns, you can include Teamtailor in that recruitment segment if you want, because they have multiple industry labels. So how do we do that? We're actually analyzing lots of websites every minute. On average, this is data from yesterday. So on average, it was more than 400 companies that we analyzed every minute. And when we profile them for industry verticals, typically companies get 7 or 8. That's the average number of industry verticals that they are labeled with. So that means that if we're using the full 1 hour today for this webinar, we actually analyze and profile more than 25,000 companies, and in total we attach close to 170,000 industry verticals for these companies. So it's really real time, and we do a similar process for other things when we analyze how many employees they are, where the HQ is located, what are the web technologies they use, what are the most common keywords that are like worth using to profile the company in a best possible way. So let's do first poll, and then I'll show you a couple of very concrete use cases, how to use these sort of alternative data points. Let's see if the poll thing that I created works. So I'd like to know which one of these firmographic data points you'd like to improve the most for your use case. Maybe it's location data that you feel is off. Maybe it's the industry vertical that is not accurate enough. Maybe it's the company size indicator that could be improved, or maybe all of them. Well, I don't have none of them, so I expect that you can find something at least. I can see that 50% have voted, so soon 60. So please, if you were doing something else while I was speaking, please rejoin and answer the poll, and then we'll continue. I'll wait for a few more votes so that we reach 80%, and then I'll show you the results. Here we go. And then I'm sharing the results. Maybe Amer, my colleague, could confirm on Slack for me that you can see the results. Yes. So, I mean, you can see the answers yourself. Industry vertical was by far the one you picked the most, 52%, and then also company size indicator. Not that many actually for location data, which is interesting. All right, let's go back to the slide deck, and maybe Amer, you can do the same and again confirm that you can see the slides. Thank you. So then, why should we care? Like, why is it important? What are the use cases? Like, simply having data is not, I guess, that important. You need to do something about it. You need to be able to convert data into real insights and then act on it. So I'll show you a couple of use cases that we have seen among our customers. First one is that there's lots of things and campaigns and prospecting and segmentation and list building happening in the CRM. So we need to be able to bring these data points into a CRM or marketing automation. So this is an example, HubSpot. Many of you are using HubSpot. So you know that by default, there's industry label for every company, and that data gets automatically populated by HubSpot Insights. That's what you see in that industry column. Then you could also connect HubSpot with a data vendor that is using the official standard industry codes. Then you would see something like computer programming as a value. But as you can see, all these companies, for example, they're exactly the same when it comes to industry. So we can simply bring in our industry verticals when companies get multiple values. And then you get multiple values, meaning that whatever you search for or whatever type of list you're building and using company properties, if a specific company has that industry label attached, it will be part of that list, meaning that you can create better segments, more accurate segments, and also you do not miss out any obvious opportunities when you do sales. So that was the first one. Then let's move to the second, find more ideal customer profile companies. This actually happens a lot, and also internally I received this one from our sales ops that, hey, important that we make sure that we work with all the good ideal customer profiles that we have. Sometimes you might use a term, we need to find net new prospects, new accounts that we're not actively working on, but that anyways meet the criteria of a good company for us. So then you remember 2 of those 20 companies were not profiled as software companies because they had been using advertising agency as an industry code. ServiceNow and Salesforce. I think everybody knows Salesforce, and many of you also ServiceNow, another highly successful software business, but definitely software business. So of course, Salesforce and ServiceNow should be part of the target list if we are selling to software businesses. So simply by adding also Vaino Custom Industries, these companies will be included in those prospecting lists, ad audiences, email campaigns, web personalization, and so on, because we can simply profile them that they are indeed software companies, and there are also lots of other things as you can see. And same applies to other data points. You can also start profiling companies based on website rank. This is a new data field, by the way, just got released. This ranking says like, well, it's really a global ranking for websites. So google.com is number 1, I believe youtube.com is number 2. And then you can simply look at the companies, how much web traffic they get. So Supermetrics, for example, globally the ranking is 44 1,000, and then HubSpot is the highest one in this example list, number 250 globally, and then we cover up to top 8 million websites. So most of the businesses and companies that you have in your CRM are covered. You can also track most common keywords used. Also, easy way to look at what are the unique keywords that are very often mentioned on the site. That's another way to profile companies and really pinpoint the ones you need. If they talk about security, scanning, it's a very different type of company versus you talking about inbound and software, for example. And then, of course, we've been adding lots of new web technologies that we track, like especially if you sell software, then you typically want to make sure that you know the existing technologies tool stack, maybe because of integrations, maybe because of other indicators that reveals, but we do have them, and that data can be easily sent into your CRM, meaning that you get more prospects. And these are also available with simple API call if you want to enrich your own customer data platform or cloud database that you're building. Then use case number 3, this one I think will become more and more popular. We've seen it a lot lately. Salespeople, they want to get support from marketing, and marketing then decides to launch ABM campaigns. Very often that happens on LinkedIn. So we decided to include also LinkedIn links into our offering, meaning that you can create a list in Vainu and then just upload that into LinkedIn Campaign Manager and have very good match rate between companies on LinkedIn and companies in your Vainu account, because we include that LinkedIn link there. And why it's important to have unique data points when doing advertisement. If you don't have proprietary data, all companies are sort of the same. Like in this example, we have 20 software businesses, so they all fall into one category, and then you more or less display the same ad for all of them. But if you actually use these industry labels, then you can build subsegments, CRM software, recruitment software, and so on. And maybe you want to display a little bit different content for all of them. Maybe you're promoting a case study on LinkedIn, and I think it would be really good for the conversion if you actually display a relevant case study that comes from the same industry vertical, most likely from the same geo as well, instead of just putting exactly the same in front of everyone. And this same applies to, of course, website personalization and all the other places where you want to personalize based on data fields. Then use case number 4. This is maybe for well, I think it happens also in smaller companies, but especially bigger companies, there's always a discussion, how do we make sure that we allocate the right accounts to the right teams? It might be geographical teams, that the Nordic team is working with certain accounts, and then you have North American team working with other accounts, but it could also be based on company size. Maybe you have a small segment team, SMB, mid-size segment team, enterprise team, and you want to make sure that they have the right accounts. Again, if we start with HQ location, if the data we have is just coming from the local authorities, and that's what we have, we would give all these 20 examples to our Nordic team, because that's the data we have. All of them are registered in the Nordics. But then if we include website insights, then we know that only some of them were actually really Nordic companies and should be approached by Nordic reps. And then we also have some companies that are US based, and maybe it makes more sense that the US team is approaching them instead of the Nordic one. And same with employee size. So if we just have the data that the official data that comes from financial statements, almost all these companies would be given to your sort of the team that is working with small companies or small and medium-sized companies. So many of them have only less than 200 employees, and we would give them, even though you of course see immediately that maybe Salesforce shouldn't be that type of account, maybe HubSpot, maybe Amazon shouldn't be that type of account. But if you just do it based on data, that is what happens unless you use Web Insights or somehow access global employee accounts. So then when we use Website Insights, this is how it looks. There are still some opportunities for that small team, for companies with less than 200 employees, then quite a few opportunities for the mid-sized team, and then plenty of opportunities also for the enterprise team. Then fifth use case. This is interesting, international cross-sell opportunities. Very powerful, especially in those moments if your product or service can be both locally or regionally. I think recruitment services, that's a good example. Like if I'm buying recruitment services in Finland, the same company in Sweden, they can make their own decisions and they also maybe need recruitment services. And then for the vendors, obviously, if you have existing customers in one country, those same companies and their business units in other countries might be the low-hanging fruits for the sales team in those countries. So the question might be, let's assume that we want to give some leads to our and opportunities to our German colleagues, and these are the customers we already know and that we work with. So this is a scenario. So then we would like to know, okay, what out of these companies, what are the ones who also operate in Germany, because those might be the low-hanging fruits. So then simply collecting that type of data from website, knowing if they have offices there, if they have registered that business in those places, if they talk about it in their social profiles that they also have office in one of the German cities. It's very easy, and we can pick the ones that actually operate there. Another alternative way would be to look at the languages of the website. That also indicates a little bit if they're targeting audience in a specific language region. So let's do another poll before we continue. So this one, you saw 5 use cases. Just wanna get the polls and understand what do you feel was most relevant. So please vote what are the most relevant use cases. Enriching CRM with this type of proprietary data points, finding new and more ICP prospects, creating audiences for ad campaigns, often on LinkedIn, but of course other channels available as well, or allocating the right accounts to the right teams, or finding those international upsell opportunities by understanding the other countries where these existing companies in your CRM also have operations. 61% of you have already answered, so please answer, and then I'll close the poll and show the results so that we can see what was the most common use case. Still last votes coming in. Now I will close the poll and show the results. So finding new companies, net new prospects, 2 out of 5 picked that one. 1 out of 4 felt that having these data points in CRM, and then obviously from CRM and marketing automation, then you can build lists, start personalizing your emails that go out, and quite a few other things. ABM campaigns, happy to see that 1/5 feels that that's the good way. I think it's super powerful actually when you do sales, that you sort of give support from marketing team by doing account-based marketing. And if you feel that the criteria you have in the different mediums like LinkedIn are not accurate enough, then you can easily upload lists that you created in Vino, because we're now also including LinkedIn links. Allocating right teams to right accounts to right teams, 10%, and then some of you felt that finding international opportunities is the most important one. And now I'm back with the presentation. It's been 30 minutes so far. Hopefully you are enjoying it. I think we have roughly 15 minutes left, 10-15 minutes left. So all in all, now we have seen quite a few examples. Now I get the message from my colleague Amer that slides are not visible. So let me see that. It's still, I think I need to close the poll. Thanks, Amer. So I closed it. It's already closed. And then So Amir, maybe you can confirm, do you still see the quick poll results? I stop screen share and I start again, so it should work. Very good. So you have seen examples of data points that we can extract from company websites, and at least in some cases, they seem to be more accurate than the ones we get from local authorities. They're more real time and they are sort of more global by nature. And then you also saw 5 use cases where that might become handy depending on what you sell. But then I think the way we look at company profiles will change, because if we combine all this, I mean, if you go to CVR, Bolagsverket PRH, typically you see the basic company profile for that legal entity, and you see that, okay, it's certain number of employees, the address, and industry code, what they do. But if we combine all this, we start seeing really nice, good-looking profiles, what they actually do, technologies they use, the countries of operations, where the HQ is located, how many employees they really are, lots of insights into the segments they're in, web traffic, certain keywords that really profile them well. And obviously, data-driven salespeople can do better prospecting, and then marketeers can do better segmentation, and even some CS people and BI people, when you look at the different customer segments and how they perform, I think these data points might become super handy. So some of these data points are already available from Vainu, and some of you I know are already using it. So full availability, meaning that officially also released, Vainu custom industry vertical data available, web traffic data, that was a new release, I think last month, website keywords, including frequency of keywords, more and more website descriptions, languages, technologies, we're adding new ones almost on a daily basis. And then if you're keen on this website-based employee count, company size indicators, or location data, defining HQ location, other countries of operations, that's available, but only if you request beta access. How to do that? Existing customers, you can speak with your account manager to request access, and then we'll make sure that we allocate the right person for it. And new customers, I think this way, just request a demo or free trial on the website, and while doing so, mention that, hey, you're keen on these web data fields. I think we see a trend that, or 2 trends. You just don't want to, it's not enough if we have these data fields available in a web user interface like Vainu. It's important that we can actually deliver these data points to you. I feel that for quite a few of you, the destination is either CRM or marketing automation. So it might be HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, Dynamics, Pipedrive, but also then some of you, especially bigger companies, are building your own customer data platforms or cloud databases, and maybe you use many providers for external data. So then it might be that you just want to use the API and send the data not to your CRM directly, but you put it into your cloud database first, because you're sort of merging data from many different sources. But it's easy to put into CRM and marketing automation. Our integrations and connectors, they support many of these data fields. And if there's a data field that is not supported at the moment, it's super easy to do a file upload. That's of course not then always up to date, but we can still increase level of automation and at least make sure that the data is available for you. These web insights, however, we need to have a company website. Otherwise, we cannot extract website insights if you do not have a website record for a company. So that's a good and limitation worth mentioning. Then I'll check if we have any questions. There will be also a feedback survey that goes out. Takeaway, this one is always the first question: if the recording will be available. Yes, it will be in a moment on our website. Also, I'm personally working with this topic a lot, so if you want to just discuss this stuff more in detail, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and discuss more. Also, these I don't have them as handouts here, but I mean, we can make slides available so that you can go back to the findings. But if you have any questions now, I'll check a few from the chat, answer them, and then we'll wrap it up for today. So let me see if we have any questions coming in. Yes, the recording one is always the first one. Well, it will be added. It takes a few minutes or a few hours, I guess, to edit the start, and then the recording will be available. Another question, if we talk about in-country employee count or global employee count, well, the official data is always in-country employee count for that specific business, and then Website Insights by nature, it's more of a global employee count, and same goes to locations. We try to cover the global locations they have, and also, of course, industries are analyzing the whole business, not just a local entity. Then a very specific one about custom industry confidence score. I feel that I actually did not mention confidence score in the webinar, so maybe it might be a little bit confusing if I start explaining the whole concept. But the way we profile industry verticals, it is based on website content. We have huge amount of training data that we use, and that's how the model is labeling companies, and each company they can get, I mean, up to like almost 60 labels is maybe the maximum number I've seen. So if we feel that companies, for example, in legal tech or manufacturing or 3D or virtual reality, if there's enough that type of indication based on content on the website, we attach that label. And yes, indeed, there is a confidence score, because sometimes the model is very strongly feels that this is the right label, right prediction. Sometimes there are cases that it's sort of so and so, and confidence score is just a way to indicate the strength of the prediction. The confidence score is also available in the API. Then a question, can you see what companies to export to a certain country? No, we don't see export to a certain country. In some of the Nordic countries, we do have export registry attached to the main database, but that database is publicly available only to the extent that we know if a company is part of that registry or not. Then the best way to detect what are the destination countries is to maybe look at the languages on the website, and also for Nordic companies you can do financial statement keyword searches, because typically the countries you export to, and if they play an important role for the business, you actually list those countries in your annual statement. So in case you're keen on knowing the countries that have been doing exports, for example, to Russia in the past, that might be a question that pops up these days. You could do financial statement keyword search for companies and check if that's mentioned there. But it's not like a data field available directly. Foundation years for Finnish companies are sometimes off, and it would be nice to get them right. And I think there's, because the foundation year for businesses, it comes from in Finland from PRH. If you re-register the business and if you get a new business ID, even though it's an existing business, then what happens is that you get a new founding date for the company. And I agree, it's sort of misleading, even though technically it's correct. Very good example. Then by using Website Insights, very often the company on the website and in other places where they have profiles, they actually don't use that fresh new date as a founding year, but they want to promote that they have history, they have roots. So that's a good way to, again, excellent data point actually, that alternative data might be highly useful. All right, I promised that I'll do it in 45 minutes. If you have additional questions, please send them over on LinkedIn, for example, and I'll reply. For all the others, I would highly appreciate if you reply to that feedback survey. I think it's only 2 questions. Shouldn't take more than a minute. Then we know how to improve going forward. And big thanks for joining and spending 45 minutes with us, and enjoy May. Have a nice summer and good luck for all the sales and marketing activities that you're having. Big thanks for joining, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.